Two, could we all stand for the invocation? Mark Coker is going to give the invocation.
Dear Lord, we welcome your spirit in this place tonight. We ask that you give your wisdom, knowledge, and discernment to this board and to those in this room as decisions are made affecting our town. We pray your will be done and not self-will. We pray for your unity and peace will prevail over division and discord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I think he's in the, I thought he was there. There he is. I didn't even know he was missing.
I was just talking.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can start without me. Nothing anyway.
Okay, before we get started, we've got George McHugh from Carver, and he wants to address the board. Come up and state your name and what your position is with Carver.
Sure. My name is George McHugh. I'm General Counsel of the Carver Companies. Carver Realty is part of those companies. And I have a map for you to reference. I can give you both maps if you want to share. This is a subdivision map that was approved by your planning board recently, end of March. Mr. Cole happened to be here tonight. He was also present when that happened. And what we had was Carver Realty purchased approximately a 15-acre parcel, and we were going to divide it into two parcels, 7.3 or 7.4 acres for each one. There were no variances needed. It was a pretty simple subdivision, but what did come to light during this was that your zoning districts bisect right through the middle of the lots. So in essence, what we gathered at the planning board was that the front of the lot, where the road frontage is commercial, and the back of the lot is residential. Our intention is to build one house on each lot, one colonial home on each lot. However, we would need to, I guess, based on the line, go all the way back to the residential part, which is not as feasible to build a home on as the front part. Now, this area is on Giffords Church Road. It's right next to the golf course in a very residential area. So I'm guessing that even if we wanted to build something commercial in the front, which it's zoned for and we could, I doubt that the neighbors would be very happy about it, because the homes in that area are pretty nice and their lots are large, and I'm guessing that they would rather have residential neighbors than commercial neighbors. So the subdivision went through, as you can see, it's been approved. And I'm here to see whether or not we need to get a rezone for this so we can build the homes that should go there and that would fit with the neighborhood, or if the board interprets this as going with the more restrictive of since there's two zones in these lots, going with the more restrictive, which would be the residential, and allowing us to build one home on each lot, or even putting a deed restriction in to each one of these deeds, restricting only one single-family home on these lots forever, ultimately taking care of the commercial issue in the front.
So you just want one house on each lot,
That's it.
and that's it?
That's it.
Completely, nothing else in the back after?
Right.
And not going to be subdivided after, or anything like that? It's just the two lots and a house on each lot facing Giffords Church
As a
Road?
matter of fact, we could put another deed restriction in that says no further subdivision of the lot, because we want to put one house on each lot. It's going to be a colonial on each one. 300,000 to 400,000 would be the price point, and then just sell them as is. That's the only intention. But nothing commercial, I just don't think it would fit anywhere.
This means that we have to have a resolution and a public hearing to,
Well, if you need zone changes, obviously a process involved. If we can treat it as the lot's able to use the more restricted classification, we wouldn't have to go through that process. I don't know the answer to your question off the top of the head. We'll have to look
Have we
at it.
talked to zoning yet on this? Have you been to zoning?
I didn't go to zoning because they had advised me to get a variance at the time. They really didn't know whether it should be a variance or a rezone or not, so why don't you just go right to the town board and start there and see what they say first and then go from there. But a variance really doesn't apply.
Yeah, I'm going by memory because I don't have the zoning pulled up here on the computer, but I can get it in a second. But it does seem to me like I did hear, I remember something back when we were doing this years ago about the less restrictive, and that seems like the simplest method to do. I mean, this is just 2 homes. Essentially, if we did that, that would eliminate the commercial part piece of that. What do we, where would we have to determine, how do we determine
how
that?
do we do this, Gerard?
I can pull
Well, I had to see if there's some authority in the law to allow us to treat it that way. You know, maybe these are the kind of things that a planner would typically, you know, work with him before he even came here and give us some guidance and direction, but we don't have a plan, which is an issue when you have projects come into the town. But having said that, we'll have to research the law to see if we can, if we have the option available to treat it that way.
Our local law you're talking about, or the county law?
State, well, some more states. I
State.
don't think there's, I mean, it could be a local law.
I didn't see anything in your local code that would allow for it. But
Can change the zoning.
Yeah, but there's a process that's more
Then we gotta go through a
lengthy and
hearing.
complicated process.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we could just say go for it, you know what I mean? And build on the commercial area with residential, I don't think we can do that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you mean
Well,
treat
if
it
you're
as
making it residential, I don't see
restrictive.
why you know, you gotta just change it. That's all.
It'd be better to change it to
First of all,
residential.
the zoning code here is not, what's the word for it, when you can, the worst zones, the more intrusive zones usually allow the lesser users.
Right,
They don't do that,
exactly.
they do that.
No, they don't do that here. No, and that's, yeah, that was what I thought it would, but it doesn't specifically say that. There may be a catch-all provision that gives the board some latitude. I know there is some catch-all provision in there that says if the board sees something obviously, you know, messed up, a little bit screwy, they have the authority to go in there.
Has your attorney commented on this at all?
I am the attorney.
Okay, so you, all right, so you haven't really researched at the state level then?
No, I did not, no. I didn't research it at the state level. I saw it at the local level that the board does have the authority to go in and correct errors, you know, inadvertent errors. Like, I've never seen a zoning district bisect a lot, a piece of land like that. Usually it's at the road or down some kind of a, you know, a natural border, not right through the lot. And I know that it's never been, it couldn't have been your intention to let someone build a house on that side of the line and commercial on this, because that would make no sense.
More often than not, I think it's cumulative, is what they call it. You know, in a commercial district, you're usually allowed to do anything that's in the less restrictive, like residential would be allowed typically, but I remember looking at the code here, and for some reason it's not written that way. But if there's any authority to give you the option to treat it that way, then I'll let you know you have the option. The board can decide if you want to either do a zone change or treat it as using the most restrictive.
So that's
So
something.
we don't need a public hearing on this then?
Well, I don't know. We have to decide if it's going to need a zone change.
If you change the zone, you would.
We're gonna need a public.
But then you'd have to move the lines and the maps, and your official maps would have to move the line, and it's a pretty extensive process. And, you know, frankly, I'm not sure it's worth all that.
And the most restrictive is the residential.
Right.
Right.
But that's why I was throwing out those options of deed restrictions to kind of cover you, to say, okay, no further subdivisions of these lots, and one single-family home on each one, and that runs with the land, that runs with the deed. So whoever we sell them to would have to abide by those restrictions. They'd be forever.
so you'll get back to us on
Yeah.
that.
Okay, and why don't I leave those, I'll need those back eventually, because I'll need to have those two.
We don't need all, okay.
Because they're the actual approved ones, but why don't I leave you one of these so you can reference it? And then I'll just get your future.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving right along, we got, before we get into privileges of the floor, Doug Cole is here, he's our engineer, and it's come to light that there's a possibility of, we've all had trouble with our water district as far as the bands and the bolts being rotting out. And George has been replacing them as they've been going bad, but there is a possibility of getting a grant from the state for $600,000, am I correct?
Yes.
And we would have to fund the rest of it, but it's a large proposal and it would save us, and I'll let you go ahead and explain all of this. And if you could just stand so everybody can hear it.
Sure.
And maybe you wanted to stay up there so that people can hear you. Move it out.
Okay, as the supervisor mentioned, I'm Doug Cole from McDonald Engineering. We've actually been working with the town since 1994.
Before you go much further, just
Yes.
let me say that Doug reached out to me and we had a meeting present with George Mead, our water commissioner, and Jim Cavoldi was present. Well, he came in late, but he was present. This is what we discussed, and he presented this to us, so go ahead.
Thank you. I'll give you just a quick little background on the grant program. It's through New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, and this is actually their third round of grants. There's been one each year for the past 2 years, so the third one was just announced. In the past 2 rounds, the town of Princetown was not eligible due to the median household income requirements, but they have dropped that requirement for this round of the funding applications. So that opens it up to communities like Princetown. This program, it's a drinking water program, and they have grants up to 60% of the project cost, $3 million maximum. We're nowhere near that. The application requires an engineering report, proof of district formation, which you already have. You have to go through the environmental review process for the project. You have to fill out a smart growth assessment form. You have to complete the drinking water state revolving fund application and a financing application and union bonding resolution. And this all has to be completed before June 23rd. So it's a very tight timeline, but it's possible. And I'll lay out those steps for you tonight. But I'll go through the project in a little bit of detail, and then we'll get into the timeline. So, as you know, the original water district was constructed in 2001 here in the town of Princetown. And that covers basically, along Route 7 from the town line of Rotterdam out to the well field over just west of A1. There's pipes on Pangbroom Road, parts of Gifford Church Road, Rooter Drive, Normanskill Drive. So that's the bulk of the existing water district number 1. About 4 years after the system was put in, the first leak was discovered on a 3-inch hydrant lead valve on Gifford Church Road. And I was out there with George, the contractor dug down, and we found out that the bolts on the valve, the bonnet bolts that hold the top of the valve together, had rusted right off. Over the next 6 years, there was probably 1 to 2 or 3 valves per year that this was happening to. So in 2011, the town board commissioned a study to see what's happening here on our water system. So we worked with CorePro that does corrosion studies.
Provided all the information on the system with them, and they did some testing. And what they determined is that the valves, right around 2000, 2001, the manufacturers started epoxy coating the valves, which is great for corrosion resistance, but they kept the carbon steel bolts to hold the bonnet together. So when those rust, the bonnet comes off the top of the valve and water starts leaking out and you gotta fix it. So that wasn't happening on their previous valves because they didn't have that epoxy coating. The whole valve and bolts would kind of corrode all together at a slow rate, and your valves will last 50 to 100 years. But that epoxy coating allowed the corrosion to just go after the valve bolts, and it's a small area, so it would eat the nuts and the heads off the bolts, and the valve bonnets would come off. So the town's been spending, upwards of $20,000 a year fixing, 3, 4, 5 of these leaks per year. And since 2011, we've had quite a few more of these valve bonnet bolts that had to be repaired under emergency situations. So, this can involve oil water orders, and it's an inconvenience to everyone. So when I saw that this grant program was opened up to the town of Princetown, I said it's a perfect time to get this problem solved and take care of all the valve bonnet bolts all at once. The other issue that's come up within the last 8 to 10 years is their saddle taps, where the water service saddles are tapped onto the mains. Again, it's an epoxy-coated fitting with galvanized steel straps that go around the pipe. And the galvanized steel is also rusting off in a premature fashion. So this project, we would be looking at replacing the valve bonnet bolts on 188 valves, and the we would replace the galvanized straps on 219 water service saddles. So we've developed a cost estimate for this work, and it comes out to just at $1 million even. Now, it might sound like a lot of money, but this program provides a 60% grant, which is the best program we've seen in years. Now, that would leave $400,000 for the town to finance. EFC also provides low-interest loans, and they have loans that are just under 2% right now for 30 years. So that would result in a debt payment for the town of about $18,000 per year. When we divide that debt service cost, that annual cost, by the 310 users in the entire water system, that would be about a cost of $57 per unit. The nice thing is, we would be able to eliminate the $20,000 line item for valve repairs in the water district budget. So right now, that line item costs users about $65 a year. So we subtract the new debt payment of $57 a year from that $65 per unit per year, you would actually be saving $7 per year by doing this project, fixing all these all at once with this grant program. So there's a lot of steps, like I said, to get through to be able to get this application in by June 23rd. And the longest lead item for this process is this state environmental quality review requirements. So basically, we've put together a project description, a map, and a secret resolution that you can act on tonight that would just say that you're going to take the lead in the secret review of the project. And then we would send out this information to all the involved agencies so that they have a 30-day review period to get back any comments to you. Typically, we don't see comments back. So then at your June meeting, I think it's June 13th, you would be able to pass a negative declaration saying that there's no significant impact of this project on the environment. It's actually an improvement. Along with that, you would be able to pass, let's see, you would hold a public hearing on that same night under a 202B hearing. It's part of state law that allows you to make improvements on the water system if it's in the public interest. So that's up to the board to decide if, when they have all the information together, if they want to proceed that in that fashion, and you would pass a resolution saying that the project is in the public interest. And that would allow you to move on to do a bonding resolution for the total project amount at that June meeting. You're still not obligated to spend any money at that point, but all those things need to happen for you to get the application in on time to meet that June 23rd deadline. So that's the bulk of the process. So I guess I'll be
You
open
did
to
say
discussion.
today when we had our conversation on the phone, you said that the grant is going to be available the following year or two?
Yes, there was a webinar today from the state that just provided more information on the program. And they did say there will be more funding coming next year, but they can't tell us what the percent grant would be. They can't tell us if they're going to change the requirements for eligibility. Just like this year, they opened it up to more, to higher median household income communities. They could make that go away next year. We don't know. They can't tell us. They could lower the grant amount. So, I mean, these are known numbers right now for this year.
You talked about the 2% loan availability.
Yes,
Who is that from?
that's through the Environmental Facilities Corporation, through
Okay,
the state.
so if we opted to do that, you're talking 18,000 per year.
Yes,
That's to borrow how much money?
400,000.
400,000. And so if we did that, we would not have to then write a full bond proposal? We would go through them borrowing the money? Or do we still have to go through the bond proposal
You still need,
for the full million?
you still need the bond for the full $1 million.
Okay, so even though we're doing that, even though we're borrowing the money, we're not borrowing the money from, we're not actually writing the bond? Or, I mean, what's this money that you're talking about, this 2%? Isn't that our borrowing responsibility?
Yes, but the funding agencies want to make sure that the town is fully on board with the project and that they bond for the full amount. This is pretty typical of all the grants that we've been involved with the state and federal government. They make you bond for the full project amount, and then once you do the project, you get your grant money, and then your final bond is really only for the 400,000.
But it's not through any bonding facility, it's through them.
It's through the state, yes.
But we still have to pay the premium to write the $1 million bond, which is probably going to cost us $35,000
Correct,
to write that bond.
yes. And that's factored into the project cost.
That is factored in. so
Yes,
we-
yes.
okay.
So part of that million is at 35,000?
Correct.
The problem, the reason I bring all this up is because, to be honest with you, we're looking here at a very small town. We have no town tax. We have limited reserves. And my concern is I don't want to get into a situation where we're committing 35, 40, I don't know what it's going to cost to write the bond, $1 million. But 3.5%, 4% does not, to me, sound, unreasonable. At least 3% at least. So would we be able then to be reimbursed for that bond into our general fund here, or is that?
Well, it becomes a water district expense. These are all water district expenses. So it only goes on the water district users. And you don't need to get the bond council involved until later in the process, certainly not before June 23rd.
And once we did this, if we do this tonight, we're not then completely obligated, we're just starting the process.
Right, you're just starting the process, because if you don't start seeker tonight, then you won't make the deadline for the application. And even the meeting in June, if you go ahead with your negative declaration for seeker, you do the 202B proceeding, and you actually pass your bond resolution, you're still not obligated to spend any money.
What did you say the cost savings was going to be again?
It's essentially a wash. I mean, the numbers say that you would save $7 per unit per year, per user per year.
And the cost to the district is going to be?
The total, the annual cost
Yes.
is just under $18,000 per year. So by fixing all of the valves and saddle taps, you would spend $18,000 a year, but you would be able to eliminate a $20,000 line item in the water budget that's set aside for emergency repairs.
Is that a permanent elimination? Or would that?
Yes, I mean, there's other
eventually come
reserves the town has for other things that may come up, but you'd be getting rid of your valve repair line item.
George, does that sound like those numbers?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Right now, the repair line is 65,000 a year. So, if we took 20,000 off, 15 to 20,000 off, that would still leave us 40 to 45,000 each year for repairs. Plus.
So all of this financing then is gonna go through the water?
Correct,
Okay. It's not gonna go through the town operational budget?
correct.
Budget lines, we have basically stay the same. But we could get hit one year all of a sudden, bunch of valves break, you get a bunch of valves breaking on one day, you could have a real headache.
Do you remember we talked about the referendum? We don't have to do that.
Right, we talked about that.
Have you seen like a 60-40 grant before, or is this really unheard of?
Well, the previous two rounds had this same breakdown, but it was only available to communities with lower median household incomes.
Okay.
And we are what, as compared to the rest of Schenectady County, second, I think you said?
I saw a figure that was 76,000 for the typical household, and the state average is 58,000.
Yeah.
So most grants require you to be, at or below the state average.
Yeah, the median income is quite a bit higher in Princetown than Schenectady, I know for sure. Yeah.
So if we started this process, we wouldn't have to, we could always back out at any point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it seems reasonable, it seems to me reasonable to start it. Even if this is gonna be available next year, then, and we have more time to make all these arrangements, at least that may give us some traction for next year's grant. possibly.
And it is, revenue neutral, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, we just don't know how the program's going to change next year. They tweaked it a little bit. They tweaked something that doesn't really affect you. Other projects that may have other grant funding, now last year they allowed this program to take 25% of your total project cost or 60% as your total grant figure. But now, if other projects have other grant funding, they make you deduct that from the total project cost first, and you only get 60% grant on the remainder. So they make little changes every year to the program.
Is this figure that you're talking about, this $1 million, is this an ironclad figure that you, or is this just an estimate? It could be
It's a
lower.
budget estimate, but we've estimated on the high end, and I would expect it to come in less than that. We figured basically 2 valve repairs per day, but that's kind of figuring that they'd be in 2 separate excavations. The way the system was laid out, wherever there's a hydrant lead, a tee off of the main for a hydrant, there's a 6-inch valve there, but the mainline valve was also placed within 5 feet of that. So basically, you could do an excavation and repair 2 valves at the same time.
So the whole project could be completed before winter, is what you're saying?
Well, it's probably a 3 to 4 month project. It depends on when they are going to actually announce the award of the grants. I would figure it more on a next summer project.
But it would be approved this year for next year?
Yes.
And if we start this process, we will be able to hear from people that live within the water district. There's a public hearing, and we can hear from them. I want to hear what the residents.
We don't need that.
But you can have a public hearing, but it's not, you don't have a permissive referendum. So it's basically, you have a public hearing, you listen to all the thoughts of the residents, and then the board decides if it's in the public interest.
Because I'd like to hear from the people that live within the water district. If you explain the same thing to them, they're going to be affected.
That's
People that
fine.
aren't
The
in
problem
water
with
district.
the problem with the referendum is it adds to the cost, because now if you've got to have,
There is no.
There is no
that's what I'm
referendum.
saying. That's what,
You can still hear from them,
you
right?
can have a hearing.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to have that here.
You have to have- But there's no cost for, we don't have to have a vote, that's what I'm saying.
No, they
Because a
don't.
vote would cost us thousands of dollars to set up, and that's not required. And not to belabor the part about the bond writing again, but we could keep that rolled right into the water department's budget.
It has to go through the water department. It's a water project. It's a town special district.
Do we have anything written up for this?
No, because we didn't, I wanted him to just come and present it, but we can do something tonight if we'd like
Well,
to just start it and.
I actually provided a draft seeker lead agency resolution for you, and also a resolution calling for the public hearing for next month.
Doug, you have any comments on it?
No, if we can, they're breaking all the time, you know? And it's gotta be fixed. If you just keep letting it go, you just keep fixing one by one, you know? That's the way I look at it, you know, that, if you get a grant, it's gonna help us. I think.
Ben?
It sounds like this kind of deal, I guess you could say, doesn't come along very often for Princetown. So I know we need to consider it, and we can start this process and not necessarily say, yes, we're gonna do it no matter what tonight. And I do want to hear from the people that show up from the water district and see what they have to say. But it sounds like it's going to be, overall, it'll save them a little bit of money. It's not much, but in the long term, it seems, based on what we heard tonight, that, we should probably start this process and, go through the initial steps.
Doug, or Jim?
Yeah, I'm inclined to say that we should probably at least start it. We're not committing to anything. If we don't start it, we can't go back retroactively and start the secret process. It's too late. So, I would like to find out just exactly how the cash flow is going to work in terms of the bonding costs to set up the bonding, because there's an expense related to that we don't have set aside in any budget. Water department or town operating. We don't have that set aside, so that would be an issue that we have to resolve.
Yes.
No, there's a comment from the floor. We'll get a comment from the floor. Go ahead, if you got it.
Okay, can I ask him a question
Yeah.
before he leaves? Obviously, I gather from what you just said, it's a design flaw it's an oversight, not, is there any way that the town can recoup any of the money that's costing us? Because it's obviously a problem, and it's not really our fault.
Right.
The bolts are rusting out because the corrosion is going from the valve, and it's supposed to last longer and all of that. All of a sudden, it's happening quicker. Is something in this program allowed for reimbursement for our cost as a town for replacing all of these? That's really not our fault that they need to be replaced.
Yeah, I thought the town attorney in 2011 had explored, going after the valve manufacturer, but I don't remember what came of that. I don't know exactly what they had found.
I don't think anything
We
came
also
of it.
did it back around 2005 also, when we first started having the problems.
Yeah, we asked that question before, and it was.
So
came back
it's past the
that we couldn't do anything. I don't know if George wants to comment on about it, he's looked into it before.
I know he does. Doug says 2011. I know back in 2005, when we first started having the problem, we looked into it down here. It was Todd Mathis from Whiteman Osterman and that stuff. And,
Yeah, and it's.
Since then, they have changed, those were the codes, if I'm not mistaken, isn't what you told us?
That was the
Those were the codes
manufacturer's
at the
standard.
time, so they met the specifications.
Right.
A year later, they changed the codes to go back to stainless steel. So that was the problem with it, why we couldn't get reimbursement, if I'm not mistaken, am I
Well,
correct?
right, the valve manufacturers found that this was happening across New York State. It started out west, and the problem kind of moved east as new projects were constructed. So the good thing is that the valve manufacturers addressed that issue by changing to standardized on stainless steel bolts. By the time that the first extension was made to the districts, the original district here, so all the extensions have stainless steel bolts, and they haven't had a single problem since they were put in. And the first extension was 12 years ago already.
That must have been a cost savings at the time when they did that, and then they found out that it wasn't gonna work. Because I was always under the impression you always use stainless steel underground.
Right.
But apparently they tried something that was gonna make it a little bit cost effective before, I don't know. Marv, you got something you wanted to say?
I got questions. Marv Blessing, south end of town. I'd like to ask Doug or the board, who's doing the seeker and who's writing the project? Is Doug gonna do that? And then I would like to elaborate on the bolts. The bolts should have been stainless steel when it was put in, because the problem you're having is the bolts are steel, just a cold grade steel. And the electrolysis action from the clay ground, and the clay, and any clay, is what's eating the bolts up. It'll dissolve bolts in probably 2 years or less in damp clay, because it's electrolysis control, well, it's a corrosion type, but it's actually electrolysis. Because we've had that with gas tanks, where steel tanks, that would eat them right up, actually. And being in the water district in the south end of town, I would advise the board to jump on it. As long as somebody is gonna do the seeker, or if Doug's gonna do the paperwork, and that, I mean, get at it, brother, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I'll gladly pay to have that done. Now, I got sand in one place, and another place I got the clay. And right in Princetown, and at Water District 1. So, you know, I'd say put the stainless steel bolts and all, you know, all throughout the whole town. Really. If you got a chance, get at it, you know? Because those grants, I've dealt with the fire department some before. When the grants are there, you gotta get on them. You can't let it go by and say, well, maybe next year. They don't work.
The other issue is not just a money issue, but it's an inconvenience issue. When they go,
right.
they will go. We know now from experience, they're gonna go. So if they go in front of your house, you're gonna be inconvenienced, and it's gonna be a problem.
Let me ask you a question, Doug, here about this. If we start the application, and then we know everything always breaks down in the winter, when it's the coldest days and whatever, they always, you know, when does everything break down? When you can't get the parts, or when it's a weekend, when it's a, can we, if we started this process, and as these failures occur from this day forward, say, would we be reimbursed for that, or could that be possible to have that?
If it happened tomorrow, I would say no. If you get through the process and you get your grant offer, we've had actually just another project with a different grant from the previous round. They had an emergency situation come up, and they did cover it before the project was able to go out to bid and get designed. So once you have your grant offer and have signed paperwork, and you have an emergency situation, another community was able to get reimbursed for that emergency under their existing application.
Okay.
But you got to get through all of this first.
You gotta get it all cleared.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just one, the 2% money is available for how long? I mean, is that,
It's 30 years.
Right, but I mean, for how long is that offer gonna be? Because we're gonna have Fed raises in the interest rate here probably next month.
Yeah.
This will stay. This is,
Well, that rate is a little bit less than 2%. I think it's 1.84 right now through EFC.
so it's basically free money, almost.
Yeah. It can go up. I don't know when.
If we start the process, are we locked to the 1.8?
You're locked in once they've accepted your application.
Any other questions?
Do you have that proposal?
I brought, in your packet, there's copies.
Which motion? 'Cause I think you have two of them here, correct?
There's two resolutions that would need to be passed tonight. The first one is the seeker resolution, basically starting that review process. So we would...
The lead agency status one?
Correct.
Which one of the words you put that on there?
East Water System Improvement, Secret Agent Status.
Oh, by the way, Susan Schaefer, not going to be in attendance tonight, we have to say that. She's on vacation. She sent me an email, she's not available tonight. So, Sandy, if you could make a note of that, and I forgot to have you call the roll, if you could just make a note who's present.
Yep, I did.
Okay, thank you. My apologies. So,
It's up to you guys.
no, I mean, we-
Doug's wife is ill, so he has to have his phone with him at all times, so
You understand?
everybody knows.
Need a clock. The ones on the table, she was supposed to take at 5. All right. All
So the one is the secret lead agency.
it's just this resolution.
Supposed to take it at 5, and now she's supposed to take it during the April.
So we do this. We all set with this then?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a copy of the resolution? Which one do we do first?
We're going to do the secret vote. Okay, guys. All right, this is, okay. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, we can do that. We'll put this off until we get to the new business. All right, the next one is, we've discussed about possibly providing water to Roll Run. And there was a problem, and we didn't think we could get under the railroad tracks, but apparently we can. And there's a grant available for that, if I'm not mistaken, that would just to do a study. Am I correct?
Well, I looked into that since we met, and that program has a median household income requirement, which you don't meet.
So that's off the table.
So that planning grant is not available to Princetown because of the income level.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do these resolutions in new business, so unless you have, do you have any more for us that you need to?
No, just to talk about Willow Run a little bit, the program, if you were able to qualify for it, it was a $30,000 grant and then a $7,500 match. So a $37,500 study just to get water up the hill, it's a lot of money for a study. So we certainly could do a study for a lot less than that, probably even less than what the match would have been. So I would think, right now, the audit control level for approval of a water district is just under $1,000 per year per unit. So, maybe it's better to kind of gauge what what people would be willing to spend on water. It would be simple to just do a quick layout and a cost estimate, and then you could tell people, it would be about $1,000 or $1,200 a year for water. Would they be interested in the town moving forward? So we could put together something like that pretty inexpensive.
How inexpensive?
Well, I'd have to figure out, $3,000 or less. So less than half of what the matching share would have been for that grant.
So since there's no grant involved, we don't have to move on this with any expediency.
No.
We're good to go. So I think we ought to focus on this tonight,
Yeah.
and unless you think otherwise.
Well, we've got this on the table right now, maybe we could think about that for the next meeting,
Yeah.
and we'll table that and see if you can get something put together by the next meeting.
Sure, I'll put a proposal together, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, though, we gotta ask them up there.
Yeah, that's right, we gotta send out.
I remember when we
You
put
give
our
us,
water-
you give us something to go by, and then we can contact the residents up there, and see what they're really interested in. If they're not interested at all, there's no sense pursuing it.
Right. And, how great is the need? How many people are out of water or, have quality problems?
As you talk with people up there, that's one of the main things that they keep asking me is when are we gonna have water up here? So I would say probably 90% of them up there are interested, but you never know until you actually show them the cost.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you,
Yeah,
Doug.
thanks a lot. Thanks for coming the other day.
You want to stay around for the resolutions? Any other questions?
That's why I said if we wanted to do it now and get it over with, so that he knows that we're gonna have. All right, yeah, we're gonna do this resolution right now, get this out of the way over there. Okay, this is for the seeker, the first one. A resolution in connection with the town of Princetown accepting lead agency status pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, seeker regulations, 6 NYCRR Part 617. Whereas the town of Princetown has determined that the improvements are necessary to the existing water system, and whereas the town of Princetown is in the planning stages for a water system improvement project, and whereas the town of Princetown is pursuing funding opportunities with various state and federal agencies for this water system improvements project, and whereas as part of the approval process, the town of Princetown Town Board must comply with regulations required under the State Environmental Quality Review Act seeker, and now on motion of council member,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
seconded by member Ben Jackaruso, and Jim Pavoldi, we got that. Resolved that the town board of the town of Princetown hereby accepts lead agency status pursuant to seeker regulations 6 NYCRR Part 617, and authors John M. McDonald Engineering to complete the coordinated review of this project and other matters related to seeker. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Supervisor Esposito,
Yes.
Councilman Pavoldi,
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso,
Yes.
Councilman Gray.
Yes.
Okay.
Just to mention to Sandy that, to ask Sandy, when would a certified copy be ready? Because we need this, like, the next day or two.
I can try.
Because I live like 5 minutes from here, so I can stop by anytime to get it.
Okay, next, resolution was approved. Okay. I can read it again. Second one, or something. All right. Whereas in 2001, the town of Princetown formed Water District Number 1, and the town board of the town of Princetown would now like to make repairs to the valves and service taps of Consolidated Water District Number 1 to eliminate leaks due to corrosion and prevent future emergency repairs, and whereas the town board has caused a report of the aforesaid proposed repairs to the facilities of Princetown Consolidated Water District Number 1 to be prepared by John McDonald Engineers, duly licensed by the State of New York, and said report is available for review in the town clerk's office during normal business hours, and whereas the maximum amount proposed to be expended for said repairs in the sum of $1 million, and whereas the town board is desirous of conducting a public hearing thereon and publishing a posted notice thereof. Is there a motion?
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Supervisor Esposito.
Yes.
Councilman Pavoli.
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso.
Yes.
Councilman Gray.
Yes.
Resolution passed.
There's a, do we have to fill in the 7:00 PM for the public hearing
Yes.
on June 13th?
Thank you. Okay.
So if we wind up doing this project, and it doesn't cost $1 million, it costs $850,000. This,
Still get 60% of that.
still get 60%, so the whack would be 850, 60%, you, 40% us.
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully that
And there's a
happens.
chance of that happening.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we can go on with your regular meeting over here, and privilege of the floor. At every scheduled town board meeting, the public shall have the right to address the town board during the course of the meeting referred to as privilege of the floor. Members of the public should restrict their comments to items of town business. Although there is no official time constraint, speakers should be considerate of others so that all interested members of the public have an opportunity to be heard. There shall be one portion of the meeting dedicated to privilege of the floor near the beginning of each meeting. All remarks and questions should be addressed to the board. No person shall enter into discussion with a person having the floor. Council members may address any comments during a portion of the meeting referred to as council members' comments. Privilege of the floor are open at, what is that, 7:55. And I think Mrs. Pomeroy would like to come up, and Dr. Pomeroy, I should say, our neighbor.
Well, I have good news to report to the board and my neighbors that I was so happy that you approved the use of this building for CPR classes for the citizens of Princetown. And I have 2 instructors. I called over to the Heart Association approved training center at Mohawk Ambulance, and I talked to Jeff Williams, and he says that he and Ed Marchand will be the 2 instructors, and they insist that they're doing it on a volunteer basis for the folks, and for me, because I'd like to renew my practice on the dummy. And so that's good, and Jim Pavoldi had suggested that we do it in the fall, so that's the idea, is to have classes starting in September. And I'm going to come back and talk to Sandy about how we can have sign-up sheets here for those classes, and we'll get the dates arranged.
Thank you, Doctor. Jim, would you like to comment on that?
Well, you know, we had our event here on Saturday, and actually quite a number of people have expressed interest in that. So I'm encouraged by that, and hopefully, if it's, depending on where it is in September, I'm going to be in Greece for a month, but I'll be back later in September. So hopefully we can kind of have it toward the end, and I'd like to have time to get a newsletter out quickly so that we can get some people. I'll talk to you about that later, though, date-wise. But they're definitely interested in it. People are excited.
We'd like to thank Dr. Pomeroy for her generous contribution to this too.
Yes, I agree.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to say that the get-together around the wall was very impressive. It really meant a lot just to sit there and watch the exchange that went on. the people sitting together and eating and talking and reminiscing. It made it feel like, pardon me for saying, like some of the old days when we had to worry about this, whether we were going to keep the snow plow, the big Barbara Greens running or not, in the middle of the snow, and people used to come down to the bottom of the hill close to our house and come in to use our phone because we had the only private line in Princetown to my father's employment. In the old days, when we really had to rely on each other, the fact that we learned very early because we were outsiders for many, many years. I don't know if we're still seen that way in some quarters, but in any event, the first rule we learned was if you're going to live in Princetown, you better learn to be a good neighbor because that's where your lifeline is. And they can have all the fancy phones and get-togethers and things like this, but nothing works like getting people together in a room. And you folks did a wonderful job, and we're proud of all of you for doing that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We did too. Everybody enjoyed it. It was a great day.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close privileges of the floor at 8 p.m. Okay. Department committee reports. Nick?
Yeah, well, Flo, and we brought Bob Myers with us, we are with the Empire, and we got a proposal for the road work. And he's got all itemized here, and Shagbar Court, they're gonna do it, the prices, I thought, I don't know, it depends on the board, but I thought they were pretty reasonable. They're gonna do all Shagbar Court for the sum of like $6,985. And that is sweeping an existing pavement and applying a tack coat of existing paving surface and refinishing and resurfacing with 1 1/4 inch of pavement, which is nice. It's actually the blacktop they're putting on it. They're not just gonna spread stone and oil on it. It's regular blacktop, so I like that. Now, the other one that we talked about was, let's see, we went on Willow Run, and we estimated the figure on that was for about $28,521. And they're going to do the same thing, 1 1/4 inch pavement and blacktop on it. And they do beautiful work, and we were satisfied with their work last year. And the other proposal was on Willow Run, which was starting at Shag Barkley, going all the way through to where they did it last year. They want $21,000 for that. So it's the same system. They're going right through the whole road and doing sweeping it, cleaning it, and paving it. And the last one was, which we weren't figuring on in our talking at the last meeting, but it is going to need work done. So we also got a price from them on Norman Skill, which needs a lot of patch-up work. So he looked at that and he gave us a price on that of $25,000 to do all of Norman Skill. And do it the same way, 1 1/4 pavement all through the whole road. Sweep it, clean it, patch the holes before they start. And I don't know, their prices were really, they're reasonable, I thought. And I don't know what Louis or what the board is going to think about it, but it comes out to a ballpark figure of like about, I think, 83 or 84,000. I don't know what you had those last, Lou?
No, I didn't have the total.
It comes to like, all that work being done for like $83,000, which I thought was pretty reasonable compared to prices we usually get from Katie Company. So it's up to the board to decide on. I guess you've all got this in the paperwork on it and look them over and see what you want to get done. So I think we've got 100-something thousand proposed for it, but we also got to always consider the fact that the county always takes about $25,000 to do their work. That's plowing the snow and cutting the grass on the sides and that. So that's about it.
This is all under county contract.
Right, right. Yeah, that one bid's all we need for that because of the county contract. That's about all that happened.
Doug?
I'm fine with
Ben?
So Princetown revenue is a little over 400,000 a year, right? So, you know, this being 83,000, where does that come from? Because that has to be not coming from revenue.
We budgeted it for it this year, but
Out
I'm
of
not.
revenue or out of something else?
No, it's out of the, it's out of our revenue. But we're not, my take on this is, I'm thinking that maybe we could let Norman still go for this year.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, right? We could just
So
have
that
them,
we'd be talking.
just patch it up, just patch it up for now.
I forgot what we had spent last year on starting Willow Run. Sandy, do you remember what that was?
Willow Run last year, I think we paid a total of 52,000, 53,000.
So we're right around.
That also was for the plaza. We did this too,
Oh, yes, that's correct.
which were pretty good prices, I thought. In fact, I had a price of $100,000 to get that done, which was a lot higher. So we didn't hesitate at all to let Empire do it, you know? That was last year.
We're talking 35.
So if we eliminate Normanskill, that would be like $25,000 less off of the 83,000 or so. So I don't know what was appropriated this year. Well, I think it was 125,000,
108.
108.
Yeah.
So we're right in the ballpark, actually. If we still got like $20,000 for the county for odds and ends that come up, emergency situations. But like Lou says, we looked it over in Normanskill. We can just patch the holes and tar the joints, which we are going to have to do this year on all the roads, tar the joints, which will be about $8,000. So if we eliminate Normanskill, that $25,000 will help us a lot till next year. And then we can have a proposal on that next year, you know? That's about it.
Yes, go ahead.
Just for the record, everybody, I've got to disclose, I'm sure your ethics law requires me to disclose that they're a client of ours, so I've never had any discussion with it, I've not been involved, and I won't participate in this discussion either. I'm just going to use the men's room while you're discussing it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, crude oil is under $50 now, it's in the 40s. So we're very fortunate in that respect that this year, when we have to have so much work done, and crude oil is around $47, which is a dramatic change from what it has been in the past, it does seem like these prices reflect the price of crude, which is low, and I mean, it has to be done, so, I mean, we don't have to decide tonight though, right? Are we deciding this tonight?
Well, the sooner the better, because we can get them working on it, and they'll put it on their schedule, and they get very busy. They do a lot of state and highway work from the...
They just secured the county contract. They're going to be doing all the work in the county now. So they accepted their proposal.
We can put it on their agenda, they can fit it in nice, you know? So it
So
would
we're
be
looking
nice.
at,
Did you add that up, those three?
Yeah, it's 83, a little less than.
No,
83,000.
I said the three.
Oh, without the last one.
without,
Yeah.
without, Normanskill.
Give me a second here. 57 or so, 57,500.
Let's see, 2%, yeah, you got it. 57, yeah, ballpark, yeah. That's without normal
Roughly what we spent last year.
That gives us some money to work with in case emergencies come up, you know? What was appropriated for the highway.
The thing is, for 4 years, nobody did nothing on the roads.
And it's
No.
longer than that.
No, they were in pretty good shape.
Yeah, but nothing was done for even longer than 4 years. And really now, like I said, with crude oil down where it is, this is a good price. Probably never going to see this
No, it's pretty.
price again, to be honest.
The only thing we gotta consider that before winter, we gotta tar all the joints. Otherwise, we'll have more problems. The rain gets in the joints and it freezes and the roads pop. So this is about an $8,000 deal, which is gonna come up before the end of the year, okay? Which isn't bad, it's worth it. It'll save us a lot of money in repairs. You know?
So in the long term,
Yeah.
doing this investment now saves money moving forward.
Well, usually, as long as it's done before the winter. The summer doesn't matter, the joints, if they're not tarred, it doesn't matter. But before winter comes, they have to be done.
So what's the cost to maintain those roads now in their current condition?
Tarring them, doing the joints,
Like whatever you have to do now to maintain, like whatever small repairs you're doing now.
we can get, the county does the small repairs for us for potholes and those things that come up. And it never is a real big amount. I can guess that tops will be $5,000 all summer for odds and ends that we might want to do, which might not happen. Because we got a lot of work out of the way. Rooter Drive is in pretty good shape. We didn't have no problems there with this winter with ice. So we got that taken care of. So I don't think anything else is going to come up.
Vernon Drive is in pretty good shape too.
So the roads are all in decent shape, I'd say. Like Willow Run, those situations, the ones that we got without Norman skill has to be done, I say. You know? Right, Bill? We went through them
Yeah,
all.
no, they're getting in bad shape
So-
there.
We're gonna,
I think that, well, I've got to write up the 284 agreement, but I think that we can approve this tentatively.
do we need a resolution or we're just gonna?
I think we need a resolution. We're going to need a resolution.
I guess one more question, it's
Yeah, sure.
budget related, not necessarily with roads. So I know revenue is the money we get, sales tax and from the county, right? Okay, so what's appropriation versus revenue? I know revenue is the money we bring in, so what's appropriation? How much we're spending, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so appropriation in this budget was 570 and revenue was 415. So what makes up that 155 difference?
We never spend that 515. It's, that was just an estimate
Okay,
of what we were going to spend, but it never comes out that way because we don't know what the actual revenue from the county is going to be.
okay,
Because we don't know what the mortgage is, we don't know, we're going to go from what we're going to get from Metroplex.
Okay.
We don't know what the mortgage taxes are, we don't know what the sales taxes are, what the revenue is actually going to come in. From now with the casino, we don't even know what that's going to be.
right.
So this was just an estimate that what we thought we would be getting. And usually it comes in a lot higher, and probably this year it should be even higher than what it was before because of the casino.
So
I don't know what our portion's gonna be of it, but we never know until they send us the check, if you wanna know the truth.
Okay.
That's the way it is.
Yes.
But,
Right, well, that's with any budget, I guess, you never know exactly what it's gonna be till the end. I just wanna make sure that, because I know Princetown has a little bit of a cushion, correct? And I wanna make sure that this 57,000 is not coming out of that cushion that we have.
no, it's not,
Okay,
it's not,
okay,
no. And as I said before, it's been a long time since we've actually really done a lot of work in Willow Run. I can't remember, I know we tried putting stones up there, and then the neighbors got a little bit of upset, got into their lawns and what have you, didn't they, Nick? And
Yeah.
on the sides of the road, we
Yeah.
tried to do that.
Well, see, like, there is an issue on Willow Run, the part that they did last year. we do have to have the shoulder work done, which the county usually does for us, which isn't a big deal, you know what I mean? It won't be that much.
I know Empire did a nice job up there, they did an excellent job in
Right.
around here, so.
I'll make a motion that we accept these less Norman skill. I do
Right.
think we should hold off on that. I don't think we have the money
No.
set aside this year for that. Unfortunately, I would love to be able to do it, but we have to be reasonable. So I would accept, my resolution would be that we do everything less Norman skill.
Right. I think that if I remember right, Lou, you might remember better than I do, didn't we mention to Empire that Normansville has to be patched up with this price, or they didn't mention it here in the
No, they didn't. No,
Well,
they
it's a
didn't.
small thing, but we could let the county do it if we had to, but it wouldn't be a big issue. There's only a few potholes and odds and ends like that. Don't get us by till next year. But I know that people will call and complain about the potholes and that, you know?
Yeah, we can get a hold of Joe Ryan and discuss that with
Yeah.
him.
That's small stuff compared to the other items there.
So that's my resolution. We accept this less Norman skill.
We're also gonna save some money in repairs, right? If we do this, we'll save a couple thousand a year.
Oil and stone and all that, or the oil, cracks, all that.
Did you write that resolution up, Sandy?
No, I'm writing what you're saying.
How do you want to state that, Jim?
I would move that we accept Empire's paving's proposal
Okay.
as we received it,
Yeah, but for, yeah,
with the exception of the Norman skill
right.
piece, which we do not have the funds for this year. So it would be all these pieces less Norman skill.
Do you need a money amount?
The money amounts I can give you, each one is $69.85, and that's for the Shagbar Court. And for Willow Run is $28,521. And for Willow Run, $21,971.
Do you need a total, Sandy?
Yes. Total is,
I can,
we just did it.
57,477. That's what you got, right, too?
And if we got to do the 284 agreement too on this. Okay.
is there a second on my?
I'll second.
Sandy, would you,
Councilman Pavolli,
Yes.
Councilman Giacoruso,
Yes.
Councilman Gray,
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito.
yes. Okay, thank you. I'll get a hold of Empire after we do the agreement and get that ready.
Very good. Thank you.
Meeting minutes, Ben has said that he did not get a copy of the minutes from last meeting. Sandy?
I just gave him a copy for this.
That was my fault, where I probably misplaced it, but I looked through them quickly, so.
Aren't you gonna do water?
Oh, that's right, we did, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're not done with that. Go ahead, George, water. I apologize.
It was a fairly quiet month. We had one chlorine pump go down, replaced that, and then put a new part onto it. Still didn't want to work, and come to find out the new part had two little magnets in there supposed to oppose one another, and they had put it so they attracted to one another. And I was pulling my hair out for a couple of days. But outside of that, everything's going pretty good. Just a reminder to everybody, July 1st is water meter reading time, so the last week of June, 10 days through first week of July, we'll get all the water meters read. If people see strangers walking around their house, accusing myself and accusing yourself, not become too alarmed. You call the cops on us, sick the dogs on us. All in the bitten once.
Any questions for George?
No, I'm fine.
Ben? Jim?
No.
Guess that's it, George. Thank you. Code enforcement, Tom is in there with some clients in there that they're for permits, so he's not going to be available. And then Moore is on a business trip, and his wife is here, Adrian.
Yes.
Is filling in for him, so he's not going to be available. And I didn't get anything from the court, Judge Miller, and the assessor's not in tonight. He left early, so that leaves just me for buildings and grounds. We had a problem with the heating system for the last 2 weeks. We finally resolved the issue after numerous attempts, and I guess the building was very cold for a couple weeks, but the issue's been resolved. So, pleased with that. I would like to get some proposals on, I brought this up at the last meeting, maybe doing something with the courtroom. As you can see, it's, the walls are getting in desperate need of repair and painting again. And I'd like to know if the board would like me to get some proposals to do the upgrades on the courtroom. It's been, I don't know, since the building was built, nothing has been done inside as far as painting and, other than the water damage that was done in the end, when we had that flood. But I think it's time to upgrade the interior of the courtroom. And I'd like to know if the board would like me to get some proposals on it. Doug?
Yeah.
Ben?
Doesn't hurt to get proposals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
On building and grounds, I do have one comment, and I don't know if everybody's aware of this or not, but our supervisor is here almost every day. The heating issue that he discussed, he was here every day for 3 days, dealing with it, digging up what's going on, contacting people to help us resolve it. He's here doing a lot of work. It's not a paid position, and I just hope the town of Princetown residents understand that if we had to pay somebody, a maintenance person or a grounds person to do what he does, we would probably be having another substantial budget line. You know, I appreciate what he does. I think that the town people should understand what he's doing. He's here a lot more than I would be, I'll tell you. So, I personally appreciate it, and I don't know how you do it all the time or how your wife puts up with it, but she manages.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for the rest of us, from the rest of us. It's good to have
I
that.
do have one other thing I'd like to bring up too. You know, it's been brought up numerous times about that it's very hard for people to hear in the back and hear the speakers, and sometimes, you know, members of our board doesn't speak too loud. I'd like to get a proposal to put in a speaker system in here with a microphone that's never been hooked up on the podium there, so that people can hear exactly what's going on and can hear. We could have some microphones up here for the members of the board. I'd like to know if the board wants me to go out and get some proposals on that. Doug? Ben? Yeah.
Like I said, a proposal wouldn't hurt. I don't know how much money we have to spend, but
Well, we haven't spent much money on on that line for that, but I think that's something that we should definitely be looking at, because we do hear from a lot of people over here that have been at the meetings that they can't hear in the back. Am I correct?
What? I guess you're correct.
as far as building and grounds goes, so we do get a new color copier that's installed, it's working, and apparently everything is fine, right? Sam?
Yes. Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
The scanning still is not fine. I had to call Omnis because there is a password involved and they would not give out the password to
Okay,
the
that goes to the
router
network.
company. because it goes through the network. So they were still working on that part of it today. I still could not scan, but she was working on it, so hopefully that will be fixed.
Okay. Moving right along, there's no public hearings. Meeting minutes, it hereby resolved that the meeting minutes of April 11, 2017, regular town board meeting are approved and or as amended. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Sandy?
Councilman Vivaldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Negative declaration for professional fees amendment. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts a negative declaration dated 5/9/17 for adoption of amendment to zoning code 11.5 professional fees as part of the code of the town of Princetown and authorize the supervisor to sign a negative declaration. Is there discussion?
It's a negative declaration.
It's just a document, which I have right here. The, basically says the board's considered the environmental impacts of the amendment that you're making, which I don't believe there are any. And that you've determined that there's no significant impact on any environmental matters as a result of the passage of this law.
And this is the addition of the escrow accounts.
Correct. And that's for you to sign if it passes.
Further discussion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Vivaldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Adoption of professional fees amendment. Be it resolved that local law number 1 of the year 2017 is enacted and that the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts the amendments to the zoning code, section 11.5, professional fees as part of the code of the town of Princetown. The local law shall take effect upon the filing with the Secretary of State as required by section 26 of the municipal zoning law. Discussion? Doug, Ben, you want to talk about this at all? Or?
I can talk about it again if you want. I know we've covered it now in 2 or 3 meetings, so
Okay.
it's up to you.
Jim?
No discussion.
I'll make a motion.
This has got to do with the people for the escrow accounts.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Second?
I'll second.
Councilman Vivaldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Motion passed. Negative declaration for administrative fee schedule charges. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts a negative declaration dated 5/9/17 for adoption of changes to the administrative fee schedule as part of the code of the town of Princetown and authorizes the supervisor to sign a negative declaration. Discussion?
This is the solar fee and the inspection fee.
Yes. Doug? Jen?
No discussion.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Councilman Vivaldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. That's another one we're supposed to sign.
Yeah, you can do it later.
Resolution passed. Adoption of changes to administrative fee schedule. Be it resolved that local law number 2 of the year 2017 is enacted, and the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts a change in the administrative fee schedule as part of the code of the town of Princetown. This local law shall take effect upon the filing with the Secretary of State as required by Section 27 of the Municipal Home Rule. Discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Cavaldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jack Russo?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yeah.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Negative declaration for the amendment to the street and highway law. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts a negative declaration dated 5/9/17 for the adoption of amendment to the street and highway law, section 11.2, town board discretion as part of the code of the town of Princetown, and authorize the supervisor to sign a negative declaration. Discussion? Ben?
I got the specific law from Gerard today. I didn't know if you wanted to read this as well.
Doesn't hurt.
Unless, yeah, okay.
Just so you know, the part that was in italics, which I don't know if you guys can see it there, but that's the part that's changed.
That's the water.
Oh, same thing. You want me to read it, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Section 11.2, Town Board Discretion. The decision as to whether or not to accept a street for dedication is no longer subject to the sole discretion of the town board, and such dedication may not be subsequently approved unless this section of the street and highway law of the town of Princetown is amended to authorize discretion to accept a street or road for dedication. If this section is subsequently amended, it should include that the decision to accept a street for dedication may be denied if it is determined to not be in the public interest. By filing an application for approval of a street pursuant to Section 7 of this local law, the applicant acknowledges that the completion of a street meeting the requirements stated herein does not create any obligation expressed or implied on the town to accept the subject street for dedication. Prior to acceptance of the street, the town board may, in its discretion, impose additional requirements or conditions. In its judgment, the public interest will be best served by such requirements or conditions. Similarly, the town board may, in its discretion, accept and dedicate a street, notwithstanding that it does not conform to all of the provisions of this local law, if in its judgment the public interest will be best served by such action. However, such an acceptance or dedication will be subject to such conditions as the town board may impose. So that would be the full reading of that section.
So
Here's why we are looking at this, is because if there is housing developments that are going to come into the town, and there is rumors of housing developments coming in, and we didn't feel that, we have no town tax, and it is costly to, as you know, to repair these roads and maintain them. And we don't feel that the rest of the town should be burdened with the cost of repairing roads. If that's the case, we will most definitely end up with a town tax at some point. So this is what we're trying to avoid, and I, for one, am in favor of something like this, and I was one of the ones that proposed it, so Gerard's help in writing it up.
By the way, on all four of these, I got no comments back from county planning on any of all four of these proposals. And the 30 days has expired.
Further discussion? Ben, you had
So the italicized writing is what prevents a board from taking another street into the town.
Yeah, basically what it's doing is if a future town board wants to take a street, they're not gonna be able to just accept the street. They're gonna have to go through the local law process, have a public hearing.
So this does.
You're making it more difficult for the future town board to accept a street.
Okay, so it can be done, but it would have to go through the law process.
The amending the local law process, yeah.
I just wanted to
As
clarify
opposed to
that
just
that's what that means.
deciding it's in the public interest and accepting it.
Jim?
No discussion further.
Doug?
No.
Okay. Sandy?
Need a motion?
Oh, yeah, that's right, we need a motion. Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Resolution passes. Adoption of amendment to street and highway law. Be it resolved that local law number 3 of the year 2017 is enacted and the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts the amendment to the street and highway law as part of the code of the town of Princetown. This local law shall take effect upon the following of the Secretary of the State, required by Section 27 of the Municipal Home Rule. Discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Negative declaration for amendment to the water district regulations. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts a negative declaration dated 5/9/17 for adoption of amendment to the water district regulations, section 1.3 and section 10.2 as part of the code of the town of Princetown, and authorize the supervisor to sign the negative declaration. Discussion?
Do you mind reading this one too?
Section 1.3, the law shall apply to all areas contained within the boundaries of the Water District, Town of Princetown, Schenectady County, New York. The rules and regulations contained herein shall be equally applicable to all outside users, except to the extent that any provision of this document is specifically altered or amended by the outside user agreement. Notwithstanding the above, the town board shall not subsequently approve or accept any outside user application unless the Princetown Town Code Water District rules and regulations are amended to allow the acceptance of an outside user. Also, 10.2 of the Water District regulations applying for water. Anyone wishing to become an outside user must contact the water commissioner in writing, so stating their desire and identifying the premises to be served by section, block, and lot. The town board shall not be required and is under no obligation to accept any request for outside user hookups. The applicant must also obtain approval from any state agency as required by state law.
This is what we're trying to do here. We've gotten into a problem with outside water use, and we're trying to, we don't have we're in the shallow end of the aquifer, as George has said many times, and we're trying to provide water for Willow Run, and I personally don't think we should be providing water to outside the residents of Princetown. I think the Princetown residents should come first, and we did have a little problem a few months back, and we still have a problem right now with someone that wants water outside the district, and it's going to be quite costly, as George has stated at a couple meetings back, and the town board has agreed that we shouldn't be providing water, and I strongly urge us to accept this. And discussion?
So this has similar authority as the other law. You'd have to change this in order to bring somebody from the outside in.
Yeah, same
to the water
concept.
district. Okay.
Jim? Is there a motion? I'll make it.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Okay. Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jackaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Adoption of the amendment to the Water District regulations. Be it resolved that local law number 4 of the year 2017 is enacted, and the town board of the town of Princetown hereby adopts the amendment to the Water District regulations as part of the code of the town of Princetown. The local law shall take effect upon the filing with the Secretary of the State as required by section 27 of the Municipal Home Rule. Discussion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jagaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. General funds claims. Is hereby resolved that the town board approves claims numbers 67 through number 92 in the amount of $29,896.50. Discussion?
I'll make the motion.
A second? You second?
Was going to,
Go ahead.
but, no, I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jagaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Water funds claim. Is hereby resolved that the town board approves claims number 37 through number 45 in the amount of $4,032.89. Discussion? Is there- Doug made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jagaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Highway claim. Upon the motion, or let's see, is hereby resolved that the town board approves claim number 1 in the amount of $1,470 to salt, sand, and plow overlook lane. Discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Second?
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jagaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Highway transfer. It is hereby resolved that the town board approves the transfer of 1,004.
No, this is the transfer.
That's a transfer of the last
Transfer.
motion.
It's hereby resolved that the town board approves the transfer of $1,470 from account number 99019 to account number 5031 for salt, sand, and plowing of Overlook Lane.
I'll make the motion.
And second?
I'll second.
Councilman Pavoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jagaruso?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Council member comments. Doug? Ben?
Just a couple things. We had recycle day. I think that went pretty well. I'm hoping in the future we can get the trees back because I think that would help with turnout. I heard a couple people call asking about the trees and we didn't have them, so they didn't show up. I was at the Wall That Heals ceremony on Sunday. That was really good, so I wanted to thank the people that put that together. Lou, Jim, Doug Thorpe. I agree with you. Those events are exactly what Princetown need. It was a really good day. I did have some questions on the high-speed internet. I saw that in the newsletter about this grant. Going around town, I know there are quite a few residents out here that do not have internet, and that is a concern. So can you explain that grant a little bit? How that works?
They haven't, I talked with the county about it, they haven't come up with the residents that are, I've had some calls on it, they haven't come up with the residents that are gonna be included in it, and as soon as they do, they will notify us. So that's all I have on it right now, and after checking in with them, that's what the county has told me. As soon as that happens, the residents that are involved in it will be notified, and the board, I'll certainly get it out to the board before we even get the notifications out, so everybody knows what's going to be entailed in it.
So, if I understand this right, the grant is for $321,000, but the actual cost is a little bit more than that?
I'm not aware of that.
All right, so that...
I think the cost is gonna be borne by the cable.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing that I have to bring up, now that you mention that.
So what's the difference between this number and this one?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it's come to my attention and was brought up that the town of Princetown is losing out on the franchise agreement. We're supposed to, we should have, many years ago, we should have, when we renew our contract, with, what's the name of the company now that does it? It's not Time Warner anymore.
Spectrum.
Spectrum. When we renew the contract, we're losing out for every resident in the town. We should be getting a franchise fee, and we're not getting that. And I don't know if we can renegotiate that contract or not. Is that possible?
I went through this years ago and ran over it. Possibly, I mean, I'd have to look at it, but it was very difficult dealing with, I think it was Time Warner back then. Or maybe it was before Time Warner.
This used to be Princetown Cable.
Well, here it was Princetown Cable,
It was before Time Warner.
but I don't remember.
Princetown Cable.
It's on cable.
No, he's talking
Oh,
about
and Rodney. Oh.
Because there was a major franchise, just like you were describing. Raleigh was not getting a franchise fee, and there was litigation. I don't remember how it ended up, but it wasn't easy extracting what we thought was due, let's put it that way.
Sandy, do we know when the contract is going to expire?
I don't remember, but I know we talked about this a couple of years ago.
If you could dig it up so that we could at least look at it, we'll come in during the week and take a look at that contract and then send a copy over to our attorney.
Something for you.
I know in Radom, they have filed, a lawsuit, to get them to address it.
Well, we can address it when the new contract comes up.
But if you're owed monies, well, I don't know whether.
Yeah, that's probably one over we do.
Hopefully this company's better to work with.
They might be.
Well, that was my comment on it, and as soon as I find out what's entailed in it, we'll...
Yeah, because hopefully it covers everything, because the difference
Yeah.
between this number and this number is 80,000, and that would be a lot for the town.
I will,
Have to pay for it.
I will check on that. And when we get the contract out, Sandy, we can send a copy to Gerard? Okay. Anything else, Jen?
I do have one more, one more thing. On this sheet, I'm noticing some of the expenses that we approved tonight. We had no choice, we are contractually obligated to approve all of them. But the one that really annoys me to no end is the fact that it costs us $7,500, cost you $7,500 to pay for a lawsuit that was absolutely senseless. Absolutely senseless. I mean, I know I'm a fiscal conservative, so I focus on nickels, dimes, and pennies. When it comes to dollars, I'm like a Wolverine. And it drives me nuts that the taxpayers of the town of Princetown are forced to pay $7,500 for a great big fat goose egg. You're getting nothing for it. Now, we have to pay it, and we'll pay it. That's our contractual obligation. But we agonized over this new printer that we put in. When I say agonized, it took us months to figure out and save a few $100 for you guys. Lou's here practically every day, fixing and repairing stuff so it doesn't cost you money and we don't have to hire people. We go nuts trying to save nickels and dimes, and we spend $7,500 because some people decided that this ridiculous lawsuit had to be filed. Of course, it was thrown out, but that's besides the point. We still have to pay. You have to pay. So that $7,500 that the town of Princetown, that doesn't have a town tax, has got to come up with. If I sound annoyed, it's because I am.
I agree with you 100%. They should be paying it.
Are they paying any of it at all?
No, they're not paying any of it. We did ask that they pay. We asked that in our lawsuit. Our attorney included that, and we requested that through our attorney. And the judge did not feel that it was appropriate. And to be honest, Gerard told us from the beginning we probably would not get paid. But we did apply for it. And it's just, like I said, I'm annoyed at it. And that's, I'm not going to bring it up every meeting, but I'm not going to let this meeting go because of the fact that it's in here and we're paying it tonight.
I agree with you 100% too. It was a frivolous lawsuit, and I don't think that when we're trying to save dollars here, that we should have to go through with that. Not to mention the time that had to go into it, that we all had to go. And it was, to me, it was disgusting.
Ridiculous. We were subpoenaed, we had to go to court. You know, it's just a waste of our time and a waste of your money. And that'll be the end of it for me. I promise. I won't bring it up again.
Okay. Anything else? Jim?
Not for me, no.
Nothing else? There is one thing before we call it a night here is the shared services. I think I've given it out to everybody. The county is forced into doing shared services. The state has mandated this, our governor has mandated this, that every county has to come up with a shared service plan to reduce taxes in the municipalities. And since we don't have a town tax, I don't see how we're involved in it, but they have asked me, and I have stated to them that we already share our services with the county and are taking care of the roads, maintenance of the snow plowing and and salt and sanding. So that's our shared services, and the solar project was one that counted towards it. And I haven't heard anything else about how it would affect us, other than that. I don't know if Gerard has heard anything about it.
Is the emergency services a shared? That's a shared service too.
Pardon?
The emergency services, call dispatch center?
Call dispatch center was part of the shared services to the 9/11 dispatch service. So yes, I think the other communities, like maybe Rotterdam or Blanchard or whatever, is more and be forced more to do this. And this is not something that you can get away from what I understand, what I'm told, that the counties were mandated to do this. Am I correct in that?
I think so, I'm not.
That's the way I understood it.
Yeah.
Bring it to the paperwork, you don't have a choice, and you have to go no matter what,
Yeah.
even though we already share.
So I think that we're in the clear about it, but I think that some of the other towns are going to be forced to do this. This is not something that they're going to be able to get around, since it's been mandated. And apparently they think that this is going to force the towns and villages and the cities to save money. And another thing I might add, we share our assessor. He's employed by 2 different towns. That's another shared service, and so is our building inspector. We share that. So that just came to my mind, and I never even reported them to, but I will, since we share them services. So I don't think it's going to affect us at all, but you know, you can never say never.
Will the county taxes go down? I mean, that's the only,
Have you ever heard of taxes going down?
I have not, but it would be nice.
I can tell you unequivocally, no.
But that's what is going on with the shared services. They had meetings and they had committees and different towns that participated in it. But like I said, since I sent it in, I haven't heard anything. So I don't think it's going to be much for us to do, since we don't have a town tax. If we had a town tax, then...
Well, we don't have a lot of services either.
No.
There's only so much we can share.
That's right. So, anyway, that's all I have. If there's anything else,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Svoldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jack Russo?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Thank you all for coming, attending, and thank you, Dr. Pomeroy, for your generous contribution to the town.